My name is Sarah. I am 34 years old, and my heart completely stopped beating inside my chest when the heavy oak door of my office swung open. There she was, standing right in front of my desk after 10 long years of absolute silence, looking completely different, but still carrying that same familiar scent of vanilla. It was my former best friend, Chloe, 34 years old, who had once looked me dead in the eyes and coldly said those terrible words, "It's him or me." She was now holding the arm of a man she introduced as her new husband, but when he finally turned around to face me, the blood instantly drained from my face because to understand the absolute shock of that moment, you have to know how incredibly deep the roots of our friendship really went. Chloe and I met when we were both 18 years old, two lost girls trying to navigate the massive and intimidating campus of our state university. We shared our clothes, our deepest secrets, and our grandest dreams. She was not just a friend to me, she was the loyal sister I never had. After college, we rented a small apartment together and worked double shifts at a local diner just to survive. We were building a life from scratch, convinced we were invincible. Everything in our perfect little world started to brutally crumble the day a man named Derek walked into the diner. Derek, a 28-year-old local contractor, sat at one of Chloe's tables and immediately began turning his charm on her. I remember watching him from across the counter, feeling a strange and sudden knot forming in my stomach. There was something completely off about the way his eyes darted around the room, a hidden darkness beneath his bright smile that made my instincts scream in protest. But Chloe was completely captivated, falling fast and hard for his manipulative lies. Within just a few weeks, Derek had completely taken over her life. He started showing up at our apartment unannounced, acting like he owned the place. I tried to be the supportive friend I had always sworn to be, but the red flags started appearing almost immediately. Chloe started missing her shifts at the diner. When I asked her about it, she would stammer out weak excuses, but I could see the dark circles under her eyes. I could hear the hushed, aggressive arguments coming from her bedroom late at night. My heart ached because I knew she was hiding something painful behind closed doors. Then, our shared emergency fund started to disappear. We kept a small wooden box hidden in the kitchen where we put a portion of our tips for rent. One afternoon, I went to grab some cash, and my heart dropped into my stomach. The box was almost completely empty. I confronted Chloe that evening. She broke down in tears, confessing that Derek had borrowed the money for a business investment. I told her that Derek was manipulating her, but she fiercely defended him, telling me I just did not understand how real love worked. The situation quickly turned into a living nightmare for me. I could not sleep anymore. I felt like I was watching her slowly drown, and every time I threw her a lifeline, Derek would fiercely slap it away. I started confiding in a coworker at the diner, an older woman named Martha, who was 55 years old and had seen a lot of life. I would sit in the break room, crying into my hands, asking Martha what I should do. She looked at me with deep sympathy and said, "You cannot save someone who doesn't want to be rescued, honey. You're just going to pull yourself under." But I refused to give up on Chloe. I decided I needed solid proof to show her the truth. I started paying close attention to his phone calls when he thought I was not listening. One afternoon, I overheard him bragging to his friends about how he was living rent-free and using his dumb girlfriend's money to pay off his gambling debts. My blood literally boiled in my veins. I felt a mixture of rage and deep sorrow. I recorded a piece of his conversation on my phone, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the device. I waited until Derek left to sit Chloe down on our worn-out sofa. With a heavy heart, I played the audio recording, truly believing this would finally save her life. Instead of waking up, Chloe snatched her hands away from mine as if I had burned her. She jumped up, accusing me of spying on them, of being a person who just wanted to ruin her happiness. Suddenly, Derek walked in. He sensed the tension and smirked at me, knowing he had already won. I pleaded with Chloe to pack her bags and leave with me right that second. Chloe looked at Derek, then looked back at me with eyes as cold as ice. She crossed her arms and said the words that would haunt me for the next decade. "It's him or me." My heart shattered into a million tiny, irreparable pieces right there. I quietly grabbed a single suitcase, threw whatever clothes I could fit inside, and walked out the door, leaving behind the sister of my heart. The first year without Chloe was pure agony, filled with severe depression and loneliness. But slowly, the intense pain turned into a quiet, cold determination. I quit my job at the diner and poured every ounce of my energy into my career. I started taking night classes in finance. My routine became brutal and exhausting. I built thick walls around my heart, terrified of ever letting anyone get close enough to hurt me the way Chloe had done. During this intense period of rebuilding, I met my boss, a brilliant and stern man named Richard, who was 50 years old. Richard saw the raw drive in me. He took me under his wing at the financial firm, teaching me how to analyze risks, manage large portfolios, and detach my emotions from my professional decisions. Whenever I felt overwhelmed by the ghosts of my past, Richard would remind me that success is the absolute best revenge against those who doubted you. I absorbed his lessons like a sponge, relentlessly climbing the corporate ladder and transforming my entire life. Years passed, and my hard work finally began to pay off in ways I had never imagined. I moved from a cramped studio apartment to a penthouse overlooking the city. I was promoted to senior vice president of the firm, handling multi-million-dollar corporate accounts. I wore tailored suits and walked with a confidence I had never possessed before. I was respected, feared, and incredibly successful. But sometimes in the quiet hours of the night, I would still look out at the city lights and wonder if Chloe was okay, secretly hoping she had finally escaped the monster she had chosen. That brings me to last Tuesday. I was sitting in my spacious, glass-walled office reviewing a loan restructuring file for a failing local business. The business was drowning in massive debt, and they had requested an emergency meeting with me to beg for an extension. I had been told the owners were a married couple who had made some terrible investments. I was prepared to decline the extension as the number simply did not make any sense. I was sipping my black coffee, waiting for my assistant to show them in, completely unaware that my tragic past was about to walk right through my door. When the heavy oak door opened, I heard a woman's nervous voice apologizing for being late. The voice sent an immediate electric shock straight down my spine. I snapped my head up, and standing there, looking 10 years older, incredibly tired, and wearing a cheap, faded dress, was Chloe. We stared at each other in complete, stunned silence. A whirlwind of anger, sadness, and pity crashed into me like a massive tidal wave. Before either of us could speak, the door opened wider. Chloe quietly said, "This is my new husband. He handles all the finances." A man stepped into the office. When he finally turned around to face my desk, the blood completely drained from my face. It was not a stranger. It was Derek. He looked older, heavier, and completely worn out, but the vicious sneer on his face was exactly the same. My mind raced violently. She had actually stayed with the monster who was destroying her, married him, and now he had dragged her entirely into the dirt. Derek froze when he finally recognized me. I watched the smirk melt right off his face, replaced by a sickening pale color. He knew exactly who I was, and he knew exactly how much absolute power I held. I slowly leaned back in my leather chair. The silence in the room was absolutely deafening. I felt a cold, sharp clarity wash over my entire body. I was no longer the scared, heartbroken girl. I was the executive who held the ultimate fate of their ruined life. I picked up their financial file and began reading their terrible history out loud. I listed the massive gambling debts hidden as business expenses, the unpaid taxes, and the fraudulent loan applications. With every single word I spoke, Derek seemed to shrink smaller and smaller, while Chloe just stared blankly at the floor in shame. "What fascinates me the most about this file," I said, my eyes locking onto Derek's, "is the blatant financial fraud. You used your wife's social security number to open 3 secret lines of credit, which you then entirely drained. Chloe's head snapped up in absolute shock, her eyes wide with fresh betrayal. Derek stammered, trying to make up a lie. I closed the file with a sharp snap. Your request for a loan extension is officially denied. Furthermore, due to the clear evidence of identity theft, I am legally obligated to report this directly to the authorities. The police will be called. Derek completely lost his mind. He slammed his fists on my desk, accusing me of doing this just to ruin his life. I calmly pressed the security button. Within seconds, 2 large guards entered the office and dragged him out into the hallway, his true nature on full display. Chloe was left standing alone, trembling uncontrollably. I walked around my desk, feeling a sense of tragic loss. I handed her a card for a safe domestic abuse shelter. "You have to save yourself now, Chloe," I said softly. "I can't do it for you." I watched her walk out, her shoulders slumped under her terrible choices. Looking back, I realized that some people enter our lives to teach us how to love, and others enter our lives to teach us how to fiercely protect ourselves. I learned the hard way that you can never set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm, especially when they are handing the matches to the exact person destroying them. I chose myself that day 10 years ago, and it was the most painful but necessary decision of my existence. It taught me my true value. Would you have done the same thing in my place, or would you have stayed to fight a losing battle? Until the next story,